Welcome back to True Story Epic, where we have another case of you F around and found out. Effed around and found out, man. Again, stop playing with these husbands. Stop playing with these men. I want an open marriage. I think we should do this. I want a separation even.
Subject: I lost my husband and my best friend, and I blame myself. Hi, True Story. I never thought I'd be writing into a YouTube channel, especially not one that mostly features stories from men, but something about what you're doing made me feel like I could be honest. A few nights ago, I was sitting in my car crying my eyes out after one of the most humiliating experiences of my life, and somehow your channel popped up. It was late. I didn't want to go inside, and I had nothing else to do but scroll through videos. At first, I was watching hair tutorials, distracting myself with braids and curls and silk presses. Then, I stumbled onto some storytime channels with women talking about being cheated on, or how they found out their husbands were gay. I was halfway into one of those videos when another one auto-played, and I was about to skip it, but something stopped me. There was no person on the screen, just a voice. I almost clicked off, but then I heard the intro, and I swear it felt like I was being called out personally. You said, "Dude, is it worth it? You worked so hard only for her to demand an open marriage." I sat there, eyes wide, frozen. I thought, wait, did someone send my story in? It wasn't my story, but it was close. So close that I ended up watching it all the way through. Then another, then another. That night I watched 6 of your videos and I cried through most of them. It made me realize something I've been denying for months. I hurt someone who truly loved me. I ruined something that people spend their whole lives trying to find. So here I am, writing in, hoping maybe you'll read my story too. Maybe someone out there will learn from my mistake, or maybe I'll just feel a little less alone. My name is Bonnie, I'm 32, and this is the story of how I lost my husband and my best friend because I let myself get swept up in a fantasy. I met Will in 2018. He was like a breath of fresh air. I know people say that all the time, but it's true. So many men I met back then were only after one thing, sex, but not Will. He was patient, kind, and actually wanted to get to know me. We talked for hours on our first date. Not just small talk, real conversations about life, dreams, families, fears. I remember going home that night and telling my sister he might be the one. We dated for 3 years before getting married in 2021. It wasn't always perfect, but it felt safe, real, honest. I thought I had found the love of my life, but I ruined it. In 2022, I joined this online book club. It was all women. We met over Zoom every other Sunday night. I loved it at first. It was something just for me. The women were funny, smart, and we talked about everything. At first, it was regular fiction, romance, a little mystery. Then the themes started to shift. One month, we read this book called The Boundaries We Break. It was about a couple who opened their marriage after the wife admitted she was bored. At first, it causes tension, but by the end, they're happier than ever. Another month, we read The Four of Us, a story where a couple falls in love with another couple. Then Sacred Agreements, that one pushed the idea that monogamy was a social construct, and real love could only exist without control. I know, it sounds ridiculous now, but back then, it felt exciting, enlightening. Like I had discovered some hidden truth about life and love. The book club girls talked about it all the time, how marriage should evolve, how women shouldn't settle for boring husbands. I started looking at my own marriage differently. I started nitpicking. Will didn't plan dates anymore. He worked late. We barely traveled. Our sex life wasn't what it used to be. Instead of talking to Will about how I felt, I let those thoughts grow. And one night, I told him I wasn't happy. I blamed him. I said I didn't know marriage would be this dull. Then I dropped the bomb. I told him I wanted to explore the idea of an open marriage before we started having kids. I even told him that if it worked, maybe we could continue it. I said whoever we bring in would be around our children, so it would have to be someone compatible. The look on his face, he exploded. Will isn't the yelling type, but that night he became someone else. He was yelling, crying, his whole body was shaking. I tried to calm him down, but he pushed me onto the couch and shouted, "If I find out you cheated on me, I will hurt you and him." I was terrified, not because I thought he'd hurt me, but because I realized just how deeply I had wounded him. He stormed into our bedroom and slammed the door. 30 minutes later, he came out holding my laptop screaming, "Explain this." I was confused until I looked at the screen. Tinder. I felt so stupid. I had downloaded it a month before, just messing around. I didn't meet anyone. I didn't even plan to. I just talked to a couple of guys for fun. I thought it was harmless, a little thrill, but Will wasn't amused. He was devastated. He yelled, called me every name in the book, and said he had taken screenshots and emailed them to himself. Then he threw the laptop against the wall. It shattered. The wall cracked. I sat there sobbing while he walked out of the apartment. 3 weeks later, I was served divorce papers. I tried calling him, texting, email, nothing. He went no contact. I begged my lawyer to help me fix it. I told her I didn't want the divorce. I just wanted my husband back. She told me it might be possible to delay things, maybe ask the court to require marriage counseling. But it was a long shot. The court dates were a blur. His lawyer was aggressive. Mine did her best. I remember sitting in that courtroom, watching the man I loved fight to leave me. It was surreal. In the end, the judge granted the divorce. No kids, no assets to divide. It was clean and quick. I was devastated. I tried leaning on my friends, especially Mary. We've been friends since college. She was like a sister to me. I thought if anyone would have my back, it would be her. One weekend, I was at her house, just us girls. I broke down and told her everything. What happened with Will, the book club, how I never physically cheated. I was trying to explain that I knew I had messed up, but I didn't think it would go this far. Then her husband walked in. He had apparently overheard the conversation. I expected him to just say hi and leave. Instead, he stood there and said, "You need to own up to what you did. Will is a great man, and there was no reason for you to betray him like that." I stared at him stunned. He kept going. Said he was ashamed of me, that women like me are the reason men don't want to get married anymore. He turned to Mary and said, "This is the last time you hang out with her. I don't want her in my house." I looked at Mary, pleading with my eyes, hoping she'd defend me. Instead, she looked away. I said, "Mary, are you going to allow him to talk to me like this?" Her husband snapped, "Allow? Woman, this is my house." And then Mary said the words I'll never forget. "Bonnie, he's right. Maybe we shouldn't hang out." I left their house shaking. I cried the whole way home. I felt like I was losing everything. My perfect husband and now my best friend. All because of something I thought was just an idea. Just a discussion. I was so wrong. Since then, I've been alone. I moved into a smaller apartment. Deleted all my dating apps. Left the book club. I've spent the last few months in deep reflection, therapy, and prayer. And your videos have been part of that healing. Listening to men tell their side, the pain, the confusion, the betrayal, it broke my heart because I saw myself in the villains of their stories. I swear I never physically cheated. I never even kissed another man. But emotionally, I betrayed my vows. I disrespected my husband. I hurt him deeply, and I regret it more than anything in the world. Will, if you ever see this, I'm sorry. I was foolish. I was influenced. I was ungrateful. You were a good man, a loving husband. And I let books and strangers online convince me you weren't enough. You were more than enough. Thank you for everything. I hope you're doing well. I hope you find peace and maybe someday forgiveness. Sincerely, Bonnie. Subject: I saw him again and I froze. Part 2. Hi, True. Thank you for reading my first email, if you did. I never imagined I'd actually send it, let alone follow up. But after putting my story into words and sharing it, I've been thinking more deeply about everything. The past few months have been a roller coaster of guilt, healing, regret, and more recently, something else. Something I wasn't prepared for. I saw Will again. I wasn't expecting it. Honestly, I didn't think I'd ever see him again, not in real life. I thought maybe I'd come across a photo online, or maybe I'd hear through someone that he'd moved on, gotten remarried, had kids. But no, life decided to throw me into the deep end, and I froze. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. I'd just come from therapy, yes, I've been going every week now, and decided to stop by the outdoor market near the park. It's one of those little weekend things with vendors selling candles, paintings, homemade granola. Normally, I'd just browse and head out, but that day I was feeling a little lighter. Therapy had gone well. I was starting to believe that maybe, someday, I'd be okay. I was standing at a booth smelling handmade soaps when I heard a familiar laugh behind me. At first, I didn't react. My mind didn't connect it. But then I heard it again, and my whole body tensed. I turned my head slowly, and there he was, Will. He looked the same, but different. His beard was a little fuller, his posture a little taller, like he was carrying less weight. Emotionally, I mean. He looked healthy, at peace. He was wearing a navy jacket, jeans, and sunglasses. His smile? Still that same warm, quiet smile that once made me fall in love. But that wasn't what hit me hardest. He wasn't alone. A woman was standing beside him. She was laughing too. She touched his arm gently, and I saw him lean in slightly, listening closely. They weren't holding hands, but they didn't need to. Their body language said everything. They were together. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen like a statue. I wasn't even looking at soaps anymore. I was just staring at them, heart pounding in my chest. My hands started to tremble, and I quickly turned around, pretending to look at something else. I didn't want him to see me, not like this, but it was too late. He saw me. I knew because the laughing stopped. The air shifted. I felt it. And when I glanced back, Will was looking straight at me. Our eyes locked. I could see the surprise in his expression, and something else, a flicker of pain, or maybe just memory. I don't know, but it passed quickly, and he nodded once, polite, neutral, then turned back to the woman and continued walking. He didn't say anything. He didn't come over. He just walked away. I stood there, blinking back tears, trying to remember how to breathe. I left the market without buying anything, got into my car, and sat in silence for almost 30 minutes. My heart ached in a way it hadn't in a long time. Not because I expected him to come running back, but because I knew in that moment he was really gone. He had moved on, and he was happy. It should have made me angry or jealous, but instead I just felt hollow, like the final piece of denial had been ripped away. I cried that night, not just for him, but for the woman I used to be, the woman who thought she was being bold and progressive by pushing boundaries, the woman who let fictional stories and internet strangers convince her that love needed to be redefined. I cried for Will, for the pain I caused him, and I cried for myself, for losing the only man who ever made me feel truly seen. A few days later, I did something I hadn't done in a while. I wrote him a letter. I didn't send it. I don't even know if I will, but it helped. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share it here. Maybe someone out there needs to hear it, whether they're the one who left or the one who was left behind. Dear Will, I saw you the other day. You probably saw me too, standing there like a ghost. I wanted to run up to you. I wanted to say everything I've been holding in for the past year, but the truth is, I didn't know how. I didn't know if I even had the right. You looked good. You looked happy. And I'm glad, truly I am. But seeing you brought everything back. Not just the pain, but the love. The real love. The nights we stayed up late watching movies and talking about the future. The road trips, the little dances in the kitchen, the way you'd always put your hand on my back when we walked into a room. I think about those things more than I want to admit. I don't expect forgiveness. I know I hurt you. I know I broke something sacred. And no matter how many times I say I never physically cheated, the truth is, emotional betrayal cuts just as deep. I wish I could go back. I wish I could undo that conversation, shut down that book club, delete that app, but I can't. All I can do is sit with the consequences and hope that, in time, you find someone who would never take you for granted. You were a good husband, Will. No, you were an amazing husband. I just didn't see it until it was too late. Be well, be loved, be free, Bonnie. Writing that letter was like releasing something heavy I'd been carrying. For a long time, I thought maybe I'd write Will some dramatic email or show up at his door and beg for another chance. But that moment at the market taught me something. He's living his life, and I need to find a way to live mine. So I've been taking steps, small ones, quiet ones. I started journaling every morning. I read actual self-help books now, not fantasies disguised as enlightenment. I've reconnected with a few old friends, not many, but a couple who knew me before I got lost in all this freedom talk. And I've stopped romanticizing the past, because let's be honest, I didn't lose Will because of one conversation. I lost him because I stopped appreciating him. I stopped choosing him. And marriage, I've learned, is just that, a choice every single day, even when it's boring, even when life gets hard, especially then. Sometimes I wonder if Will misses me, if he ever thinks back to our wedding day or that little cabin trip we took where we got snowed in and lived off hot cocoa and microwave popcorn. I wonder if he still has the playlist I made him or the notes I used to leave in his lunchbox when he had that awful job with the 6 a.m. shifts. But then I remind myself, it doesn't matter. What matters is that I finally understand what I had. What matters is that I will never, ever make that mistake again with anyone else. I know I'll probably get judged for what I did. That's okay. I've judged myself more than anyone ever could. I deserve the consequences, but I also believe in redemption, in growth, in second chances, not necessarily with the same person, but with ourselves. If nothing else, maybe my story can be a warning, a mirror, a reminder that what the world tells you is freedom can sometimes be a cage with the golden bars. Real freedom, it's found in loyalty, in building something solid, in weathering storms together. I had that, and I let it go. To the women listening to your stories on YouTube the way I did, please hear me. If you're married to a good man, if he's faithful and kind and tries, don't throw that away because a book or some empowered friend tells you monogamy is outdated. Don't chase thrills at the cost of stability. Don't let fantasy become more important than reality. And to the men who've lived through heartbreak, your pain is valid. I see it now. I feel it. And I'm sorry. Not just for Will, but for every man who gave his all and got discarded in the name of freedom. You deserve better. Will deserve better. And maybe someday I'll be better too. Thanks for listening again. If you end up reading this one, thank you. If not, that's okay too. Just writing it helped. And if you ever do another video about women writing in with regret, feel free to share my words. Maybe someone will hear it at the right time, before it's too late. Sincerely, Bonnie.
No. No, and then all you're doing is telling on yourself because he's going to go snoop and find out that you've been cheating. Here comes divorce. It's ridiculous, man. Guys, yes, follow these examples. If she's asking for an open marriage, it's over. I don't care if she said, I just wanted to talk about it. You know, it's no big deal. You can say no. She's cheated before or she wants to cheat. Let her go. Let her go be free. Yeah, you can go be single and open all you want. I'm out of here. Guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. If you want to send in a story, send it to truestorynation@gmail.com. Here, I'll put it on the screen. That is truestorynation@gmail.com. I'm going to catch you guys at the next one.